All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. What are Brandon Aiyuk's ultimate end game options? We'll discuss those options coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. 2 locations are open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. in both spots. 7 days a week. Go get some brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And this video is also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Check them out there at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. Call my friend Anthony Catania. He is at 831-521-5264. All right, Brandon Aiyuk wants to be traded. Niners say, no, we're not trading you. So what's going to happen here? Training camp starts in a couple of days. What are the various options? And I'm getting this from a lot of my friends who are like, Krug, I know you cover the Niners. you're the guy in the know. What are all the options here for Aiyuk? And there are a few. So let's go through them one by one. And then I'll go through all the different options. And then I'll tell you what I think is most likely to happen. All right. Option number one is, the 49ers have him this year on the 5th-year option. You've heard about the 5th-year option. It's $14.1 million, and he can play on that 5th-year option this year. If the 49ers have given him that 5th-year option, they've exercised the 5th-year option. Guys who are drafted in the first round, you have an ability to exercise your 5th-year option if you like that player and have them for a 5th year. And then you can franchise them afterwards. So then you would actually have them for a 6th year or even potentially a 7th year. So option number one is Aiyuk plays this year at $14.1 million for the 49ers on what they're calling his 5th-year option. And then at the end of the year, he's a free agent and they don't franchise tag him and he just walks away in free agency. Somebody pays him a boatload of cash and the 49ers, because they're going to pay Brock Purdy a ton of money, probably won't be able to afford him. So he plays his 5th-year option this year at $14.1 million with the Niners and then walks away with the Niners getting a 3rd-round compensatory pick, most likely, for his departure in the next draft. Not in this next draft, but the draft after, so 2026. So that would be option one, let's say. Option number two for Brandon Aiyuk is he comes back and he plays this year on his 5th-year option. So he plays this year at $14.1 million. And then somehow the Niners sign him to an extension after he plays this year on the 5th-year option. So maybe he signs his extension midseason. Maybe he signs his extension at the end of the season. Maybe it's at the start of free agency in March. But Aiyuk, option two is he plays on that 5th-year option. And then somehow, some way, the Niners say, you know what, we're going to sign you long-term. And then it gets done either sometime during the year or, as I said, before next March. That's option two. Option three, and this is kind of like the Nick Bosa option, which is that Aiyuk comes back and re-signs and gets his extension done before week one. We saw Bosa do this last year. I think he came in 5 days before the Niners played the Steelers. It didn't necessarily work out great because Bosa went from 18.5 sacks to 10.5 sacks. And you wonder how much of missing training camp affected, whatever down cycle production he went through this year. But that's option three, is that Aiyuk basically pulls a Nick Bosa, waits till the 11th hour, but then in the 11th hour signs a long-term deal with the 49ers, who knows at what price, but they get it done right before week one. Option four is, Aiyuk has demanded that the 49ers trade him. And option four is they do. Option four is somebody offers the 49ers something that they say, you know what, that's worth it, and let's do it. And I would imagine there's only one team, New England, that could probably offer just draft picks in 2025 and get the deal done because they're such a bad team. I think the 49ers would know that they're, if they offer a first round pick, that could be the first pick in the draft. So, and it's likely to be a top 5 pick. It's almost a lock to be a top 10 pick. So if you really do want that tackle of the future and you feel like you've never been able to get up high enough in the draft to land that player, this might be your opportunity right here, is if you trade Aiyuk away and either get players that can help you this year, or maybe you trade them to New England and you get a first-round pick in next year's draft, which would be a great asset to have, or maybe it's some combination thereof, right? Maybe it's some combination of players and picks. But I would imagine that the 49ers want players because they're inside their Super Bowl window. So option 4 is the Bosa option, which is, man, this thing is dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged. But, or I should say option 4 is they trade him away. But option 3 is he re-signs before week 1. That's the Bosa option. Option 4 is they trade him away. We'll call that the DeForest Buckner option, where he gets traded. Option 5 is Aiyuk plays super hardball. The Niners say, you know what, we want you to play on your 5th year option at $14.1 million. He says, you know what, I'm holding out. Well, then things could get really interesting because there's really 2 ways for Aiyuk to do this. He can hold out. I mean, he's not going to hold out for the entire season. Why? Because if he holds out for the entire season, it's like this season never happened. A year will not accrue, and he literally will be no further advanced than he is in this moment. If anything, he will have it would be like he froze in an ice sculpture for a year, and he came out and he's exactly in the same status as he was right now a year from now. So that's what happens. If he holds out the whole year and a year does not accrue, then he's back here next year on the 5th year option. And the Niners still have 2 more years after that to tag him. So there is no way that Brandon Aiyuk is going to hold out the entire season. That's not going to happen. But what then makes a season accrue? And if you look at the details of the CBA, a season accrues when you've played in at least 6 games. So after you've played in 6 games, you've played that, your season is accrued. So technically, Aiyuk could opt to hold out until week 11 of the regular season and then return. And that would mean that a year would accrue. And this is something the 49ers badly don't want to happen. They're inside their Super Bowl window. It would do their Super Bowl, chances a major blow if Aiyuk doesn't show up till week 11. That would be a nightmare. If the 49ers felt that Aiyuk was going to try to hold out and just report, at the very last moment, so basically hold out and not report until week 11, I think they ought to probably trade him just right there, because that's the loser scenario. That's a scenario you don't want to see play out. Now, there's 2 ways, as I said, this could play out. We're just assuming it plays out that way, which would be that he would hold out in training camp, hold out in the preseason, and then not be there for week 1 against the Jets, and then not show up until week 11 when he absolutely has to see the season accrue. That could happen. Okay, and that would be a bad scenario for the Niners because they would get nothing for the player in a trade and they wouldn't get anything from him on the field, and he's not going to show up till week 11. And if he doesn't show up till week 11, it's going to take him weeks to get in shape. So you're basically talking about a guy who's not even going to be in football shape until December. Now he's going to be fresh, but he won't be in football shape till December, and he's probably liable to have hamstring pulls or soft tissue injuries. But then there's the other side of this. Aiyuk could show up in training camp, play the preseason, and then play 6 games and then say, peace, it's been nice, I'm out, and accrue, a season in the first 6 games, and then basically say, hey, I'm playing 6 games and then I'm out of here until you guys give me a deal. And that would be a very, very aggressive move on Aiyuk's part. It would make the year accrue. It would show the 49ers whatever shape and conditioning he's in, and it would show them where he's at as a player, and then basically take his talents away, and put a lot of pressure on them to either go the rest of the year without him, and see how that goes, or to come out of pocket and throw out the big dollars and get the deal done. So that's option 5. Okay, option 6 is that he comes out and plays this year on the 5th year option, and then the Niners franchise tag him next year. So and that's going to be at roughly, according to the CBA and the way everything tags out, it should be around $24 million. So that's option 6. He plays on the 5th year option this year, and then at the end of the year, they don't let him be a free agent. They just franchise tag him for a 6th season at $24 million. And then, he's making 24 mil, but he's franchise tagged. He can't go anywhere. They could also tag him in a way where a team could make an offer and the 49ers would have the right of first refusal and would get 2 number 1 draft choices if they opted not to match. That's one of the options they have as well. If on the tags, the different tags that they can throw out, one of them is a franchise tag that automatically, he's making 24 million plus. He's a Niner. He can't go anywhere, period. That's it. But then they can also tag him in a way where teams can bid on him and the 49ers would have right of refusal. And if they opted not to match, then he could leave at that point, and the 49ers would get 2 first-round draft choices in compensation in return for in that scenario. So that's scenario 6 and 6A, let's say. And then scenario 7 is one that's just not happening, which is the Niners just get so disgusted with Aiyuk, they just cut him. They just, you know what, we're releasing you. We're tired of this. That's not going to happen. So they're not going to release him. So, and then, we went through the other 6 options. So what do I think is most likely going to happen? I would say the most likely option is that Aiyuk is going to play on the 5th year option, and he's going to he's going to be 14.1 million this year, and then 5 weeks in, 4, 5, 6 weeks in, the Niners will announce in the middle of the year, hey, we've agreed on a multi-year long-term extension that will keep Brandon Aiyuk a 49er, for the rest of his career, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be here. So he compromises, plays on the 5th year option, makes peace with them, and then they say, you know what? This guy's, it was a good faith gesture that he's playing on the 5th year option, and now we'll reward him mid-season. And maybe not even mid-season, maybe like 3-4 weeks into the year. I think that's the most likely result. You say, what's the most likely result of all this Aiyuk stuff? I would say it's that he comes in and plays this year on the 5th year option, and they see that, that he wants to be here, that he's in shape, and, and he looks great, and this and that. And he looks like the Aiyuk of old. And they sign him, within a month of the regular season to a big money long-term extension. That would be my guess. I don't even think, I don't think that they would wait till the end of the year and, make him play on the 5th year option all year and then do this next March. I don't see that. I see if he plays on the 5th year option, I think they will reward him after 3, 4, 5 weeks with a multi-year big money deal that gets him close to 30 million, if not at 30 million. I would say that that's the most likely result, is that he plays on the 5th year option and that he gets an extension somewhere probably in the first 6 weeks of the year. I would say that's the most likely scenario. Okay. The nuclear scenario is The veterans report next week. He holds out. He's not there. He's not there for training camp. He's not there for the preseason, and he's not there week 1 against the Jets. And in this scenario, this is headed down the road of Aiyuk showing up in week 11. And to me, that is the big loser here, is if somehow you can't get a deal done with Aiyuk and he won't play on the 5th-year option and he doesn't play and holds out, and then we know he's not going to hold out for the full year because he needs the year to accrue. But if he decides he's going to play ultimate hardball with the Niners, and that would be ultimate hardball for Aiyuk would be, I'm not showing up and playing at all until week 11. And if you're the 49ers, you can't allow that scenario to play out that way. You just can't. I think there has to be more dialogue and more urgency earlier on in this holdout if he does hold out. So he plays on the 5th-year option and signs midseason and is a Niner for years to come and everything's hunky-dory, or he holds out, refuses to play on the 5th-year option, and shows after several weeks that he is marching towards, I'll show up in week 11 when I have to show up and not a minute before. And if that's the scenario that the Niners are headed down, if that's the road that Aiyuk's leading them down, I think they trade him. I think they trade him before we get to week 11. I think they trade him, before the NFL trade deadline, first week in November. So to me, that's, if you said what's likely to happen, I think he shows up, plays on the 5th-year option, and the Niners reward him by giving him a midseason or early season big money, long-term extension, and he's a Niner for many, many years to come. If this thing, though, gets ugly and he holds out, and maybe there's some bad dialogue that goes back and forth, and the Niners get an indication that he ain't showing up till week 11, I'm pretty sure they're not going to wait till week 11 for Aiyuk. I'm pretty sure that they would be proactive then and change their tune from we're not trading him to make us an offer and we'll see. So, that's how I see it. They're not going to release him. I don't really believe that they want to go down the road of the 5th-year option and then tag him. The tag becomes very, very prohibitive financially. $24 million becomes very prohibitive franchise tag for his 6th year. And then the 7th year tag is really, really pricey. So I don't think they're going down the tag route. I don't think they're going to re-sign him before week 1 like Bosa. To me, it seems more acrimonious than that. I don't think they're going to look to trade him this summer. I really don't. I don't see him playing on the 5th-year option and then walking as a free agent at the end of the year. That's why bother? Why bother in that scenario if you're just letting him walk? So to me, he plays on the 5th-year option and he gets a new extension from the team, probably, before Thanksgiving, or he holds out, plays super hardball, and somewhere right around the cut down or week 1, week 2, somewhere in there, they say, you know what? We're trading him. We're trading him. New England, Chargers, Washington, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. I don't even know. I don't know where he would go. Indy. There's a lot of teams that I think would be in the running. But to me, that's the way it goes. He either plays on the 5th-year option and signs midseason long-term, or he holds out and they trade him early in the year, either right at the cut down at the end of August when teams are formulating their rosters most likely, or maybe a week or two into the year, and they trade him at that point, knowing that he's marching towards I'm not showing up to week 11, and they don't want any part of that. So there you go. Those are the various options for Brandon Aiyuk. I told you all of them. I told you which ones I think are most likely to come to fruition. Give me your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.